Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Awards Watch Emmy Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Anderson. Today is Friday, July 15th, which can mean only one thing. It is the Emmy Nomination Post-Mortem Podcast. So, yes, the 2016 Emmy nominations were announced yesterday. And today I have with me one of our Emmy experts, Chris Pepper. Hello, Chris.
Hey.
So we are going to chat about the nominations from yesterday. There is actually so much to talk about, but we'll try and keep it brief today. So we'll get into some of the shocking things that got in, or not so shocking if you had predicted them. Some of the snubs that didn't get in for things that maybe we have had really over-predicted. A little bit of trivia, and yeah. I think we'll go from there. Let me ask you, Chris, right up the bat. What do you think the biggest story of the day was in terms of the nominations?
Well, I think it's looking at the networks, really. Two major stories sort of stand out. HBO completely dominating with their that Sunday night block, just getting 15 nominations each, and then obviously FX getting its first drama series nomination for the Americans, and then Fargo and
since
American
Damages.
Yes, sorry. And then the two limited series just being monsters as well. So they did really well.
Yeah, I if we're not looking at individual things, I would agree. It felt like HBO is in kind of a strange position where they are the dominant force here, but it was limited to these three shows, one of which has already announced its ending. So they kind of need to find their alternate once Game of Thrones is gone.
Yeah, they need to pray Westworld is decent.
Yeah, and I think it stands a good chance in the sense that the Television Academy is now embracing, genre and fantasy. So it's not like it has to start that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, FX really just blew up this year. And the streaming networks also are doing extraordinarily well. Netflix had 54 nominations. That was huge. It was the third highest, just behind FX. So that's a big thing. It's almost like networks and premium cable, or not premium, but the basic cable is really kind of trying to come for HBO and Showtime, and I kind of like it.
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of trivia now. I was looking up and I found it really interesting that new shows from premium cables got 0 major nominations. So HBO and Showtime, none of their new shows got a single nomination, and I think Vinyl was the only one that got anything. It got 2 for title design and makeup.
Yes, I used your bit of trivia there in the main page piece because it was something that really stood out. That was a major thing. HBO had Show Me a Hero, Ballers, Vinyl, and The Brink, and then Showtime had Billions, and a lot of us had at least Paul Giamatti getting in for Billions. He's an Emmy winner. Damian Lewis, his co-star, is an Emmy winner. The Show Me a Hero thing really was the biggest surprise to me, because the argument I kept making in our podcasts and in our conversations was that it was HBO's only limited series that was going to really get anywhere. Sorry, True Detective. And it has a really good pedigree behind it. But your push for The Night Manager was correct. It was the right one.
Yeah, I just wish I'd stuck with it and predicted it in limited series in the end. It made sense. I just didn't know what to bail on. I guess Show Me a Hero just completely flopped.
Yeah, I mean, it basically took all of the nominations that Show Me a Hero would have had. So it was quite surprising. It was really impressive. So I can't
even Olivia Colman over Catherine Keener as well.
Exactly. That I was just like, what? How did that happen? How did that happen? My God. So let's talk about individual shows and how they did. because to me the biggest thing of the day was the Americans finally breaking through, and I couldn't be happier because I love the show and I've wanted this to happen. And whether it's the Oscars or the Emmys or the Golden Globes, whatever it is, I totally understand the separation between awards and quality, and I try and have some distance from it so that I'm not disappointed or not too excited because there's just so much behind the scenes that it's about and not necessarily about the product. But I screamed. I actually screamed when Reese and Russell got in. I was super, super happy and I was giggling, and then I thought, oh my God, is it really going to happen, or maybe is it just them? And then it did, and it was fabulous.
I think as soon as I saw Reese, I was like, okay, this is happening. Russell's getting in. The series is getting in. It just felt like as soon as I saw Reese's name, that was it. The show was actually going to land with the Emmys finally.
I was a little concerned because critically Reese has gotten more attention than Russell has, with TCA and everything. And so I thought maybe it might be just kind of like that. But it wasn't. They did extraordinarily well, and obviously the other reason I'm happy is because I predicted it, and I stuck it to the end, and it's really rare because most of the time when I have my fringe predictions, I get really nervous and I pull them out at the last second, and I stuck with it, and I'm pretty stoked about that. So yay! And good for FX. And the weird thing about it is that FX did not change their strategy or campaign or lack thereof for the show. So it really got in on the strength of the support for the show, which I like. That is one thing that makes me really happy, is that there was no extra push that you can go, oh, okay, this is the reason why. So.
Yeah, it seems like I was just in general really happy with the nominations, I think, and it seems like they're finally paying attention to a lot more shows, a lot more networks, like the random nominations for Lifetime or whatever. It seems like critical attention is actually paying off, and now people are actually catching up with these shows.
It is sometimes, yeah. Constance Zimmer getting in was a brilliant nomination, and she was in at the Critics' Choice, and so yeah, I think sometimes it's so funny seeing the Television Academy kind of work, where they will jump onto a first season of a show like Unreal or Mr. Robot, which we'll talk about in a little bit too. But then other times it really takes them a while to come around to it, like The Americans or Friday Night Lights, which is the thing that I kept comparing it to at the time. So it's really, really difficult to know, but I do think, and I do agree with you, that there is a really great set of nominations here, despite a lot of snubs, and despite the fact that as great as the limited series category is, it's basically like two shows. It's Fargo and People versus O.J. Simpson that just absolutely took
they
up
even just shoved out all the way pretty much completely as well. There's no room for anything but those two shows in most categories.
Yeah, that was a little surprising. Let's talk just for a second about Orange is the New Black and what happened to that show this year, because I think we saw last year, when it was forced to move into drama, that it had just an impact that is now pretty permanent. It got 12 nominations in its first season as a comedy. It got 4 last year, and now 1 this year. But all it got was casting. Even Uzu Aduba, who nobody would have predicted was going to get snubbed, was not there. She was last year's winner. But again, this is another funny Emmy thing. They can be really fickle, and last year's winner can get snubbed this year easily. Or you have Julie Louis-Dreyfus, Candice Bergen, Helen Hunt situations where they keep winning year after year after year after year. It's virtually impossible to be able to pin down which and who the Academy is going to keep with and who they're going to abandon.
Yeah. I don't really know exactly how to explain it. Everything from the ratings suggests that it's like Netflix's biggest hit, like 16 million people watch it, but it really feels like they've had this sort of agenda against it since they switched it to drama, and they clearly are just totally out on the show now.
Yeah, definitely. It's toast. I think they should consider. I don't know what, but yeah, it's when the Television Academy made that new rule about half-hour versus hour shows and comedy versus drama and having to appeal. It felt very directed towards Orange is the New Black, and I don't know why.
It ended up being purely targeted at Orange is the New Black. Like, they made this new set of rules about hour and half hour, and they let Shameless switch back to comedy. They let everything switch back, and then Orange is the New Black was like one thing that like, nope, you're staying in drama.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Glee was allowed to stay in comedy.
Yeah,
Jane the Virgin was allowed to be submitted in comedy. So there's not a lot of ways to look at it other than pretty targeted, which is unfortunate. What are some of your favorite nominations of the day?
Well, The Americans, obviously. I'm trying to think. Well, okay, so limited series. I was expecting Fargo and OJ to have a big day, but I was still worried about Bokeem Woodbine. So the fact he actually showed up, and they ignored like Ted Danson, Emmy favorite as well. So they acknowledged like the best parts of the shows as well. So I thought that was really cool. Sterling K. Brown getting in as well. Similar situation to Woodbine.
Yeah, I was super, super excited for Woodbine, not only because I had him predicted, but he was my favorite performance of the whole series. But yeah, how funny is it that we saw so many people that we felt like were very, easy calls and very Television Academy friendly and Emmy friendly. And then in Fargo, we've got Jesse Plemons and Bokeem Woodbine in, and Ted Danson out. It's wild. It's really crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, it only comes back to the thing I'd say that they're actually watching these shows and they're paying attention and they're recognizing the actual worthy performances. Well, we can overlook Travolta, but for the most part...
Can we?
The most part, they're actually doing their job and recognizing the right things for the right shows.
Yeah, considering that the three guys got in for People versus OJ, which I didn't feel like was too difficult a task for it. I am almost now surprised that Nathan Lane didn't get in and Connie Britton. I mean, I'm just like, that could have been
Thank
easy.
God that didn't happen.
Oh, here's a really fun little factoid that will make people sad or not. And I'll just read it off of my piece. So with David Schwimmer's nomination for supporting actor in a limited series or television movie for the People vs. O.J. Simpson American Crime Story, not only is Courtney Cox the only Friends alum to not be nominated for Friends, but since the show ended, all the other actors have been Emmy nominated for other projects, except for Cox.
Oh no!
I don't know whose dog she ran over, or if it was all 19,000 Television Academy members' dogs, but she is not liked. Something is wrong there, because that's hard.
Oh no!
Yes, poor thing. Let's talk a little bit about what I had just mentioned about people that seemed like Emmy magnets and then weren't, and then others that are and were yesterday. Yesterday we saw Horace and Pete, Louis C.K.'s self-funded 10-part series, limited series, play, whatever you want to call it, was virtually ignored. And most of us had it and the majority of its actors getting in everywhere. And we know that CK got all Television Academy members DVDs for it. But the only nominations it got were for Laurie Metcalf in guest actress in a drama series, and then a picture editing nomination. So a few things I'm thinking about that. Do you think that there was a negative response to the show being submitted in drama series, and that maybe that was a little bit of a cheat?
I think there's definitely a few things that could explain why it underperformed. That's one of them. It also could be it could be seen as a rejection of the self-funded web series. Like, they're fine acknowledging streaming services, but maybe seeing a show on louisck.net was too far for them. And then the third one, maybe they didn't watch it. Like, if Alan Alda's not even getting in for this show, it seems like the Emmys were just not paying attention to the show.
Yeah, if I was going to, because I had, Alda, Metcalf, Steve Buscemi, Edie Falco, I had just like half a dozen acting nominations for this show. But if I had to pull only one out as like absolutely for sure, I would have done Alda even ahead of Metcalf.
Yeah.
But I think I mentioned this either on this podcast or on the Awards Daily one, that since Metcalf's episode was the third, all they'd have to get to is that one. And even if they were like, I can't watch this anymore, that could be enough. And it almost feels like that's what happened. I do think you're right that the self-funded thing might have been just a bridge too far, even though Louis C.K. is a giant Emmy magnet. And I think we all jumped on that as a really easy call. But there just is, or was, clearly not the industry push and support for it. Although I do have a friend, one of our friends from the past here, works on campaigns right now, and his boss usually gives him, DVDs to look at and analyze. And the only one he didn't give him and took home for himself was Horace and Pete. So it's tough. You don't know. One of the stories to come out from Horace and Pete was that it basically bankrupted Louis C.K. So outside of the DVDs that he was able to send out, there was really no campaign for the show.
Yeah.
You just had to either watch it or name check it, and that did not happen. So it did for Laurie Metcalf, though.
Yeah, and even though we were probably over predicting it more than everywhere else, Alan Alda was still on most people's lists. You look at his Emmy history, 20 plus nominations or whatever, 7 wins. You would have expected, especially when John fucking Voight made the lineup. You'd have expected him to be able to squeeze into that lineup.
John Voight coming in after missing I don't understand how that happened.
It's the new episodes.
It's so weird.
Showtime seemed just really good at getting these random nominations for all of their shows, which makes the Billions missing completely even more crazy.
Yeah, that's what was really odd to me. Ray Donovan got in for Voight and Schreiber again after his first last year, but also a directing nomination.
Yeah.
And I watched the show. I like it, and it's pulpy and junky, but there's no way I'd ever give it any technical nominations. There's nothing especially, I guess, unique about its direction. So
Yeah.
I'm still super confused by that. It did, and I think I wrote this. It did remind me about like when Dexter got in, but I don't know. It's odd. I need to look back at individual history and stuff, because sometimes if you've worked with enough people long enough, that gets you there.
Yeah, that's still one of the weirdest nominations. I think that directing nomination. I think Dexter still got into series when it showed up in director, and it was coming off its acclaimed fourth season, I think. So
Exactly.
it sort of made a little bit of sense.
Exactly.
But here, yeah,
It does not here.
nope.
What? Just to name out a couple of things that I was really excited about yesterday, besides obviously the Americans, was RuPaul getting his first Emmy nomination for reality host. I'm pretty stoked about that for a show in its 8th season. And it's really funny too, because this came just within like a month or so of his interviews talking about that he doesn't need Emmy nominations. He doesn't want Emmy nominations because it's a type of mainstream validation that he doesn't want for the show, which I thought was a great thing to say. And then bam, there you go. And you never know how something like that is going to be received either. Somebody vocally says they don't want it and you give it to them anyway. It seems almost passive aggressive.
Yeah.
But it's pretty funny. I was also pretty happy at the level of visibility of people of color being nominated. There is at least one non-white person nominated in every lead category for the first time ever. Tracee Ellis Ross's nomination as lead actress in a comedy series is the first black actress to be nominated there since Felicia Rashad in 1986. So
It's crazy.
30 years.
Yeah.
It is crazy. And this happened last year when Viola Davis and Taraji P. Henson were nominated together in drama series lead actress. It was a lot of first times. Davis's win last year was the first time in the Emmy's 67-year history. It was a watershed moment, and it really became clear yesterday too. But at the same time, television is such a broader medium, and there is more there than looking at movies and the Oscars. The Oscars have a more finite group of nominations and categories, and there's a lot more here. But it was really great to see. There was a tremendous amount of really positive diversity, even though there was no Constance Wu. So that was really sad. That kind of broke my heart. Especially when Laurie Metcalf, who you mentioned earlier, got in. She got 3 nominations yesterday. She got the one for Horace and Pete. She got a guest actress in a comedy series nomination for The Big Bang Theory. And she got a lead actress in a comedy series for Getting On. And that was a show that when Niecy Nash got in supporting actress with, what was it, like 7 other women, we sort of dismissed it pretty easily as, oh, okay, so she was on the bottom and here's, who was really in. And clearly that was not the case because she survived that. So.
Yep, they apparently really like Getting On. Like, it survived one of the 7 nominees last year to make a field of 6, which added Judith Light as well. So she was one of 5 of the 8 returning to get in. And then Laurie Metcalf got in as well.
Super impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was Mayim Bialik and Julie Bowen got bumped.
And Krakowski.
God. I don't even know how that happened. But, yeah. Oh, goodness. Let's see. Do we want to talk more about snubs? They're so sad. Because I could talk about, like The Leftovers all day long, or
Yeah.
Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which I've just started watching and I adore. And there's a really great
Yeah, I think
example.
they've just got.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say clearly got a CW bias, and I'm probably never going to predict a CW show to get into the Emmys. Like, as
Yeah,
much diversity and as many shows as they want to acknowledge, like they acknowledge Lifetime, but CW seems like, just like LouisCK.net, it seems like one step too far for them.
like it's not a real network or something.
Yeah.
I would have to agree, and I feel bad about that because it's a pretty silly bias. But yeah, between Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and like Mozart in the Jungle, there there is that disconnect again between like the Golden Globes and the Emmys. The Globes love, love, love to reward brand new shows, but then they just as quickly will dump them because they're looking for the newest thing.
Yep.
Like Mozart in the Jungle won comedy series and actor in a comedy series this year, and all it got at the Emmys was a sound mixing nomination. Rachel
Yeah.
Bloom won Globes, and did she win Critics' Choice too? I think.
Potentially, I'm not sure.
I'm thinking yes, but I'm not quite sure. But I mean, the show is a musical, so her winning this category at the Globes was not exactly, a surprise. But as the person who was the creator and writer of the show, I just thought that that was enough to push her to, get out of the CW ghetto.
Yeah.
But at least she got a couple of nominations in the music category, so that was cool. I was pretty stoked about that. What do you make of The Good Wife's writing nomination?
Oh, yeah, that is really strange, especially considering Margulies and Baranski both missed, so they clearly are done with the show. They didn't want to give it a big send-off, but I guess it's if there was one place where it's been rewarded quite heavily in the past, it's writing. I think they've got two or three writing nominations, so
I thought they only
one
had
last.
one.
Oh, if they've only got one, then it's even crazier.
That's. I just looked at it yesterday when I was doing the thing. They got a nomination for writing from the pilot, and then now the finale,
Right.
which was not
Yeah.
even a very well received finale.
No, it was a horribly received finale. Yeah.
So it's a strange nomination, and it is even stranger with the Christine Baranski snub, she's been the stalwart of the whole show, and the
Yeah.
one that stays in when everybody else is dropped.
Yeah, and then Carrie Preston came back in guest actress after missing since the first year, I think, no, second year.
Yeah, second.
Just weird.
It is, and it's really what is so fun to me about the Emmys and doing predictions for it, even more than the Oscars, is that
Yeah.
I mean, the Oscars, you have a certain amount of, on paper, this makes sense, precursors and that kind of thing. But the Emmys are a really different animal. There aren't the same precursors because they go off a different calendar than the Globes or the SAG or anything, and there's no crossover voting. So the Emmys just have a really more eccentric and wild sense about them. So it's much
Yeah.
harder. So when you can do really well at Emmy predicting, I think it's like 50% luck and 50%, being able to zero in on something. So it's just more fun.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah, with the Oscars, it's like you go in thinking there's probably seven or eight people that can happen in this one category, and it pretty much never goes outside of those eight, whereas the Emmys just go completely left field pretty regularly.
Exactly. I dig that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about probably one of the biggest buzzed shows, and that's Mr. Robot. Because we all kind of had the show in various stages of predictions for the last couple of months. Some of us had in drama series, some didn't. I think all of us had Rami Malek in. Christian Slater was in for everybody until kind of the last minute. Let me look and see what we had. Oh, actually, everybody had him in except for me. I took him out. That category is also, too, by far was our worst single category. 4 of the 5 of us only predicted 2 correct nominations. I did predict 3 because I did have Kit Harington in correctly, which was yay.
I think you're one of the few on the forum that got 3 out of 6, which is pretty terrible.
It was very bad. I mean, our supporting actress in a drama series was also pretty bleak. But boy, this one was rough because people saw Christian Slater's Globe win as an easy call and a sort of like welcome back to having a successful career kind of thing. But okay, to get back to Mr. Robot, so I'm not too distracted from it. It got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nominations. I wasn't surprised by the writing nomination it got. I was surprised that it didn't get a directing nomination. Everything else makes sense. Casting, music composition for its score, and sound mixing. All of those make a lot of sense and work. Do you think that the 6 nominations is enough for it? I kind of almost feel like it's half-assed.
Yeah, I think, USA will definitely be pleased with it. They got the drama series nomination, which it could have easily missed. It could have been another Americans, but clearly it's a buzzed about show that people paid attention to. So it got drama series, it got Malik, it got writing, but I still think it underperformed. It missing directing seems pretty weird, especially for Ray Donovan. And then Christian Slater not getting in for John Voight as well. Ray Donovan taking 2 slots from Mr. Robot. It's pretty strange.
Absolutely, and I think, and I don't care what anybody says, that is the direct comparisons I will make.
Yeah.
those 2 nominations, which most people predicted for Mr. Robot, went to Ray Donovan, just inexplicably. I do think the drama series nomination was by far its most successful one, because we were all kind of looking at drama series as what do we have? We have only 2 people had Mr. Robot in. Most of us had Orange is the New Black. All of us but one had Horace and Pete. So there wasn't a whole lot of faith that it would get in, but it did. So yeah. I think it's a really good thing, and I think the second season running during voting period is going to do very well for it. So
yeah, and I think it's done what it needed to do, and Malik's now in the conversation for a Best Actor win as well. So that's the best they could have probably hoped for.
I think so too. I mean, I know we should probably try and make some early predictions, but I don't even want to start that yet. But but I think you're right. I think Malik stands an outstanding chance. But again, we will have the the discussion of, do tapes and submissions matter or not? Because sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. We can always point to situations that explain both. And sometimes too, I think if a voter already watches a show versus having to watch an individual isolated episode, that can have its own negative or positive impact. But Malik feels pretty good here. I'm still confused at Kyle Chandler getting in again, and Ben Mendelsohn.
Yeah, I said this on the forum as well. It seems like Netflix has become the new Showtime in terms of getting these random nominations for these new shows. It managed to get these Bloodline nominations, or for Grace and Frankie. He's picking up these weird random or double nominations for its shows, and it's getting a ton of nominations over like 7 or 8 different shows.
Mm-hmm. And it was just announced, I think, this week that Bloodline is getting a 3rd season. So I'm going to go ahead and pencil those in now for next year's Emmys, because that seems like it's probably happening.
Yeah, it felt to me like Chandler's was literally just a one-time thing. Welcome back. We liked you in Friday Night Lights, but apparently not. And
No.
Ben Mendelsohn was pretty critically acclaimed for the first season and nowhere near the same in the second, but he was still name-checked, so they must like the show a little bit.
Yeah. So another show, we had a lot of shows this year that had their final seasons, but another show that took a lot of hits, as The Good Wife did, was Downton Abbey. Like Christine Baranski, who was the stalwart of Emmy nominations for The Good Wife, Jim Carter was someone that always got in and was an easy call for Downton Abbey, and he missed this year in its last year, which is kind of like it's really like the ultimate fuck you. It's gotta be bad. But then Maggie Smith got back in.
And it got directing again as well.
Yes.
It's really really weird.
Yes. And writing. It got both, didn't it?
Yeah, it got both, but I think it got writing last year, didn't it? Maybe not, actually.
Yeah, it's very strange. I mean, this is again one of the Emmy things where you're trying to find symmetry where there isn't any. It's surprising that Downton Abbey could still get writing and directing, but then
it missed writing last year as well, so it missed both, and then both came back this year. Maggie Smith came back.
Yeah, that's a crazy comeback.
Jim Carter dropped out. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just saying it now. I will not be surprised if Maggie Smith wins.
I know that is the word on the forums right now, and that's how everybody feels, but she had a good year. She'll have a good submission. Lena Headey will have a good submission. Constance Zimmer will have a really good submission. Apparently, I have to watch whatever Maura Tierney submits, because that is an out of nowhere nomination. It's so weird because it's what happened with the Globes this year.
Yeah.
She was the only thing to get in after the show winning for Ruth Wilson. It just didn't make any sense. But then now we have 3 ladies from Game of Thrones in. I'm pretty stoked Maisie Williams is in. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, it was probably a year or two late. I didn't really like her arc this year, but it's still just really cool to see her get in.
I didn't like the arc because the payoff was, for the audience, was not good. After having to watch a year of torture for this poor girl. So that sucked. But, oh well. I still think that's going to be a very competitive category. Because people are going to say immediately, oh, the Game of Thrones women will cancel each other out. Which I will say, shut up. Because that just is not how it works.
Yeah, I think Lena Headey is pretty clearly ahead.
I think so, but we all thought that last year too.
No, as in from the Game of Thrones ladies.
Okay,
like I'd say she's clearly the one contending for the win out of those 3, and then I'd put Maggie Smith and Constance Zimmer pretty closely alongside her as well. I'd say it's really competitive, that one.
It is. I'm pretty excited for that. I doubt we'll see Constance Zimmer in next year, but
no,
we'll see. One can hope. All right. Well, geez, what else do we have to dissect? I know there's a great handful of first-time acting nominees that got in, which is pretty awesome. A lot of good little bits of trivia. Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the South Park creators, finally got voiced acting Emmy nominations.
Yeah.
After the show's been on for 19 years. That's crazy. That is really weird. The Daily Show with Trevor Noah. was completely denied after The Daily Show with Jon Stewart being one of the biggest, Emmy winners, the biggest Emmy winner in this category.
Yep, and Colbert's out too.
Colbert is out too. I was really disappointed that Samantha Bee was not able to get in as a result of those guys not being in. That was, especially for comedians in cars getting coffee.
Yeah, they went for Jerry Seinfeld over considering nominating a woman in that category.
Yeah, who was really doing the best work in that field right now.
Yeah.
So that was a little disappointing too. But yeah, I think we can do just this little quick one. What are we at? 40 minutes. Come on. People can listen to that on the treadmill. Easy peasy. Unless you have some more things that we can mention. I don't think there's much more.
No, I just really hope now that the Americans, I think it's got a really strong possibility of it getting at least one win. I think Reese, Russell, and Writing are all fairly up in the air, and I think it could probably pick up one of those three. Hopefully.
I agree. I think Writing is a very strong possibility.
Especially with Game of Thrones having the battle episode, which wasn't really the strongest script. Mm-mm. So I expect that to win directing, but...
Yes, I do too. I think that would make a lot of sense.
And it would follow the Friday Night Lights path in that way as well, winning Writing, so...
Yeah, you're right.
So that'd be great.
Cool. That means that in the next 2 seasons of The Americans, we should at least see a Matthew Rhys win.
Yeah.
We'll see about that. All right. Well, cool. Then we'll just go ahead and wrap this up for now to make a nice little quick and tidy podcast. And obviously we'll be coming back pretty soon with some prediction ones. And especially once the individual acting nominees get their episodes submitted. That's when things get really interesting, and we have so much to talk about when that happens. And I'll definitely have a page up on the main page as those submissions come in. Obviously, they're all in for the guest acting categories, and we can start there, but once the series and limited series submissions come in, there we are. So thank you so much, Chris, for joining me this morning, or evening for you.
Yep, it is evening.
It is evening. And all right, until next time, everybody, goodbye.